Hi there, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Make Art, Don't Starve podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey.
And I'm your other host, Al, and today we are joined by Anna.
Hi.
We're so glad to have you.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Anna. I am 25. I live in New York City. I'm so far a self-taught artist. I primarily paint in oils. That's pretty much it. I love art, so that's why we're here.
We are so excited to have you. We have a lot that we want to talk about today, but mainly what we want to talk about is being a self-taught artist and kind of the importance of teaching yourself and how we can do that and the fundamentals of art.
That's great. Yeah, I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah.
So what has your experience been so far as a self-taught artist?
Oh, it's been a roller coaster. It's just been up and down, figuring out what's right or wrong for me, like figuring out what works for me. You know, in the very beginning when I started out, I was just, painting random Pinterest flowers and rainbows and all the random stuff you can find. But then I started to kind of ask myself, like, what is it that I want to paint? Why am I called to do this? And so then I kind of just started to I'm starting to figure out what it is that I really like, and for me that was portraiture. And so I went kind of down to the traditional art and I started to figure out what I like about that. And basically my self-taught, my materials are all from YouTube. Like everything that I find is art, art tutorials, and a lot of artists on Instagram as well, like how they paint and what I like about it. And I kind of just went from there, honestly. Just lots of practice, trying lots of different things, seeing what fits for me. And yeah, it's been fun, but it really has been a roller coaster when I look back at it. It's just, it's a mess.
Is there anything that if you could go back to when you first started out that you would tell yourself to expedite the process, or do you think that all the ups and downs kind of brought you to where you are?
I think the ups and downs are part of it, because you have to kind of try a little bit of everything to see what you really like. If I wanted to be efficient, I would tell myself, hey, just go for oil painting because that's what you're going to like. But there's no way I would know. I started off with acrylic paints for probably a whole year or so, and then I took one oil painting class in college, and I didn't even know it was an oil painting class. It was just painting one, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, it's probably acrylic because it was during the pandemic. And then I get the art supplies list, and it's like oils, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? I start freaking out. I'm like, this is toxic. What am I gonna do? I live in this little room, and that was what really pushed me to paint in oils, and I'm kind of grateful for that, because I don't know if I would have ever gotten to oils if it wasn't for that class. And yeah, that's when I started with the oils, and I really liked it, and then I kind of wanted to transition to something a little safer or cleaner, just to not have to use solvents, and now I just use water mixable oils. That's my baby.
I had that same experience, actually. My first introduction to oils was taking that class, and we actually started with water mixable oils, and then I've transitioned to using traditional oils. We had the reverse experience, but also the same experience.
Cool. Yeah, I had no idea that existed until recently. I remember actually a long time ago when I had to do that class, I actually found your video, Kelsey, with the
really?
It was the I don't know the title, but it was how to paint non-toxic with oils, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, it's possible. And so I watched your video, and I kind of played around with that, and I saw some other videos that I used and kind of brought some peace at mind. But yeah, now I'm at water mixable oils.
That was my third video ever on my channel.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Third video?
It did well because I found it.
Yeah, it's been a high performer for a while, but yeah, it's just crazy.
That's amazing.
That is funny. Worlds colliding. So, in terms of being a self-taught artist, I think one of the things that, like, when I think about being self-taught, I think a lot about, like for me, I think I have a very different approach than, like, both of you, where I am very go with the flow. I don't really set out to specifically learn things. I'm kind of the philosophy that, like, if it's important to me, like, I'll learn it over time, and maybe every once in a while I'll do an exercise. How do you approach being self-taught? Because based on your YouTube channel, that's something that you definitely kind of label yourself as self-taught. So is there anything that you specifically do to kind of formulate as, like, a curriculum? Like, how do you approach that?
I think right now what I'm really focusing on and what's helping me with being self-taught is kind of creating a process in my art. So like trying to follow, like, okay, this is going to be my step 1, my step 2, like whatever it is, priming, staining the canvas, then I do the measurements. Like, there's so many different ways to do everything. People like to sketch with a pencil. People like to do thumbnail sketches in their sketchbooks first. And I think I'm just trying to figure out what I like in my process. And again, I take so much from so many different artists on YouTube and Instagram, and I kind of just, I think that's why the ups and downs have to come, because I try everything and I'm like, all right, this didn't work, but I liked this part. And so then I'm kind of just formulating my own system and trying to stick to it, because what I've noticed over time is a lot of professional artists have their system. This is it, this is how I work, and that's how they create these great masterpieces. So I'm trying to, find my system, I guess. I don't know if that even answers your question.
I think that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, like what Slew talks about is that you're trying to build, like, an order of operations, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any specific masters that you kind of look at for inspiration in that area?
Well, I really like Draw Mix Paint. That's a YouTube channel. That's Mark Carter. He is, like, super strict, and I really like it. But I really like it because it kind of, like, I need some structure. I know that art is really fun, and you can do it in so many ways, and you can go wild with it. But I think in order to, like, create a lot of pieces that are consistently good, you need some sort of structure, and he's really helped me with that. So I would call him a master. I mean, he's really amazing. Yeah.
I think that actually brings up a great point, the idea of, like, having kind of strictness or structure when you are very, very new to, like, especially art. Like, there's so much art, there's so many mediums, there's so many different ways to do things. I think when you're self-taught, it can be very overwhelming, and I think having someone kind of tell you what to do, especially because, normally you're in school and you have a teacher to tell you what to do. When you're self-taught, you're so lost. Like, there's so many different things and there's so much information. Kind of picking someone to be like, okay, like, they can tell me what to do and I trust them and I can just, like, do that thing. And eventually you kind of, like, learn on your own from there. That can be, like, really helpful.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of times people say, different artists on YouTube, like, follow one person. Like, definitely explore and listen to other people, their perspectives, their processes. But at the end, when you're really trying to learn a certain way of doing something, follow one person, because if you follow multiple, you're going to get lost and confused because everyone says different things, and you kind of have to find, what your, like, where do you stand? And if you find different voices to create that, it's going to be very, very confusing. So whenever people ask me this, I'm like, if you're going to, like, dive into a course, like, I would be dedicated to this one person, their style and their process of everything, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I think that helps, like, make it, like, way less overwhelming. It's just having that one source. That's what it was like with me for oils, was I had so much information coming from so many different, like, directions, and eventually I just had to be like, okay, like, just take what I know, just sit down and just, like, figure it out, pick one, like, avenue to go down, because when you have so much advice, because everyone does have different opinions and approaches, it can be very, very stressful.
Yeah, I bounced around a lot. Oh, go ahead, Kelsey.
I was just thinking that, like, I am kind of the opposite. Like, I like taking lots of classes and exploring, like, lots of different, like, ways of doing things, just so that I can kind of, like, build my own, like, system, because, like, by following one person, they might not want to make, like, the kind of art that I want to make, like exactly. And I think by, like, hodgepodging and, like, mixing and matching and, like, taking all these pieces from all these different people, I'm able to, like, cobble together something that's more, like, uniquely mine, but, like, there's, obviously a lot of value to following one approach. Like, it's probably much faster.
Yeah,
Right.
like I was gonna say is like I bounced around a lot too. Like I heard a lot of different artists' perspectives, and eventually when I was like, okay, I think this is exactly like this artist like speaks as close as I can find to what I'm trying to find, is kind of where I like invested more time in this one person. But yeah, of course, I definitely think it's super important to explore different artists, different styles, everything. Yeah, it's important for sure.
Yeah, experimentation is just like, it's like the key to sustain artistic growth throughout your entire career. You just have to like try new stuff and experiment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can't imagine doing the same thing forever.
that would be so boring. I know some artists do it,
hell.
and I just like I can't figure out how they can just paint one subject forever.
In the same way.
In the same
over
way.
and over
Yeah,
again.
it's crazy
Yeah.
to me. You mentioned earlier, though, that your first introduction to oil painting was in college, but now you're a self-taught artist. So what was your, like, experience, and why did you choose the self-taught approach rather than going to art school, like, sticking with a more, like, traditional art school kind of curriculum?
Yeah, so I actually went to college for accounting. I graduated in accounting, and I just needed 3 credits left, so I took a painting class. And right when I was graduating, I was actually contemplating going back to school and doing art school. But the very last second, I decided not to, just because it would have been a lot to pay for. I did not have the funds at the time, and I also didn't know how serious I was. At the time, it was just something I really liked, but I didn't know how serious I was. So I was just like, okay, let me just give myself the time to see if I really like this, and then if I decide to go back, I go back. And so I gave myself the time, I painted a lot, and now I'm kind of just here, and I decided to just not go back. A funny story is that that professor that I had somehow found me on YouTube, and he also somehow found my email, and he emailed me, and he was like, hey, I knew you had the skills, like I believed in you since day one, like you're amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he found me, and he thinks that like, and I had told him that I wanted to do art school, and he was happy that I guess that I didn't, and that I found a way to learn myself. And I think hearing his words was very reassuring, because he's an amazing person.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, that's so sweet. That's a good story.
I know.
That's such a fun little, like, very validating too.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Sure.
So why do you think it, maybe not more beneficial, but why are you like okay with not going to art school? Like, what helped make that decision that like art school wasn't worth it?
Well, first, definitely the money, but then the second is also because
No, it's expensive. Yeah.
It's very expensive. But if I was willing to invest, another reason why I wouldn't have done it, or why I haven't done it, is because I did a lot of research on YouTube, a lot of art students that went to art school, and a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people found that they learned a lot of things that wasn't really helpful, or wasn't really things that they wanted to know. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that. I think what I'm finding now is that if I do want to do art school, I'd probably do an atelier where it's like a year of drawing, a year of painting, and that's it. It's like nothing outside, any extracurriculums, none of that. It's very focused. So that's what I would recommend to anyone who's like serious. I would say like maybe research something like that. And that's what I've thought about. But that's definitely why. I just hear a lot of, I guess, unsatisfied stories.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, my experience taking art in college were pretty similar. I felt like it was very unfocused. I wasn't doing the things that I really wanted to be doing. And you're totally right. Like ateliers, if you're really serious, if you have a very clear direction with your painting, you can find like a program that teaches you those exact skills. Like 100% do it. It will be so much more worth it than art school. And a lot of the times they are just like a fraction of the price, like ridiculously cheaper. Mm-hmm. And the art school, like just how much it costs, that price tag is such a difficult pill to swallow, because it's like the amount that it costs, at least here in the US, is like, do you want a down payment for a house, or do you want a degree?
Right.
That's
Especially
perfect.
when yeah, not to go with the stigma of artists can't make money, but especially, if you don't know what exactly you want to do, which when you're young and you're going into art school, you don't know exactly what you want to do. There's no guarantee that you'll be able to find like the right job for you, and that can be really scary to think about paying all that money for you might not get the right job, and it's like I could do it myself. Like I could just do what I want to do by myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I think when I was picking out what I wanted to do, I slightly considered, when I was graduating high school, I slightly considered art school, and I was like, I don't want to be told what to draw. I don't want to learn all this other stuff that I'm not interested in. I don't want to deal with mediums I don't care about. And I thought that it would be a really cool experience, but at the same time, I was like, I was worried that it would make me lose my love for art, having to do it in this very strict environment with, people telling me what to do and having to be constantly like judged and critiqued. I just didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And when there's so many great resources like on YouTube, it doesn't feel worth it, I think. Not like, for me personally, if someone wants to go to art school, none of my business. But, for me, I just thought it didn't seem like, I feel like I could just do it myself.
Yeah, something else that I have heard a lot is the art critiques, and it's I guess it's hard, because it's subjective and it's really all everyone's opinion at the end of the day.
Right.
But I've heard people get critiqued so hard that they quit. And I've heard that not only just in painting, but I have a friend who is a writer, and they got critiqued pretty harshly on one of their stories, and she hasn't really been writing the same since, and it's really hard and scary. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get critiqued, because you definitely should, but when you go to school, you don't know what kind of professors you're going to get, and you don't know
Right.
if they really care or not, if they had a bad day. So yeah, those things can be very sensitive and can really ruin someone's dream, I think.
Yeah, like the
I
wrong word
agree.
from someone can stick with you for the rest of your life, and
Yeah.
it's like something they say super casually, and it can have an enormous impact on you. Yeah.
And I think we do, like, we're all on YouTube. I think we open ourselves up to that on YouTube, but it's like different because I don't know these people.
Mm-hmm.
They can say things and it might hurt my feelings, but like I don't know them. And like if it came from a professor that I cared about telling me that like they didn't like my art or whatever, it would crush me. But coming from some random kid on the internet, like I don't know that I care.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very different. A professor you feel like is more credible than a random person behind a screen.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of the big
I think-
advantages of art school is that it can help you stay accountable and like keep doing all of this stuff, and that's a big disadvantage when it comes to being self-taught, because all of your motivation has to be internal and you have to really push yourself really hard. So what are some things that you've been doing to really stay consistent in your creative practice and really keep yourself accountable?
Yeah, that's a good question. Luckily, I'm treating this like my job. I don't have an outside job currently. So I give myself a schedule and I stick to it. I think I have that type of personality that is very dedicated when I'm trying to get something done. So luckily that helps me. But yeah, I just have like a written schedule. I have things that I want to do when things are due, and whenever I am not inspired or just a little burnt out or just tired, just because those days come naturally, I find YouTube videos that inspire me. I'll read some art books or just look through paintings, and yeah, I kind of just go from there. But I think having a schedule is really, really important. And another thing that I personally do that helps me, which is kind of random, is work out. Just because it kind of clears my mind from just always thinking about art and YouTube and filming and editing and so many things. So I feel like working out kind of just like, it kind of resets my brain, and I'm like, okay, like I'm ready. I know what I need to do now, and it kind of helps me stay on track with these things. But yeah, I would just say having a schedule is really, really important to me.
Yeah, for sure. I did not have a schedule for a while, and I recently started implementing like a much stricter schedule, and the increase in my productivity is insane. Just having that like puts me in the mindset of like wanting to get things done, and it's definitely helped me. I can see how like having a schedule even for things like self-improvement and teaching yourself and stuff would really, really help, because just having that extra layer of that's what's keeping you accountable, instead of having to rely on like yourself to like eventually do something. Giving yourself that deadline is just so much more beneficial.
What does that look like for you? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think YouTube is a big one for me that keeps me accountable. I mean, I know I could just stop and quit, but and no one's telling me not to, but I think for me it's like, okay, like I have somebody waiting for a video, and I think that even if it's just one person, that's like more than enough for me to like keep going. And I don't know, I have such sweet audience, and like they just always send such nice messages to me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, you guys are amazing, I'm gonna keep going. Not that I ever thought of quitting, I never did, but it's just, I think having these people in mind help a lot. And so I think having YouTube as something that I have to do every week helps a lot with staying accountable with my art.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think like once you sort of have that, like the ball is rolling in terms of YouTube, and like you have like this consistent schedule already in place, it becomes so much harder to quit and break that, because you already like you're in the habit of doing it. But no, like I've sort of been trying to build a curriculum where I'm studying the fundamentals more, and I found it really difficult to kind of like manage my time when it comes to making art, trying to make a video every week, and also dealing with like sponsors and like all of like the emails and the admin tasks and like the video editing when it comes to like this life as an artist and content creator. But it seems like you've been able to make more art and actually improve relatively quickly. So like what is your I want to know your secret is what I'm saying.
Thanks. I'm really glad that it looks that way. Because let me tell you, I feel like I could always add more to my schedule. I feel like I could always add more to my to-do list. I feel like I could always be doing better. But I don't know if you guys know, but I was sponsored by Evolve recently, and they're an academy, so like an online academy, and to be honest, I haven't continued the program yet just because I can't find the time, and I really want to, because I mean it's an amazing opportunity, and that's where I'll really get a good foundation for my fundamentals. But it's so hard. Honestly, before YouTube, I would paint, I don't know, a couple times a month. Like, it really wasn't a lot. It was very sporadic, just whenever I was in the mood, whenever I was free. But because of YouTube, because I'm painting once a week, like, for sure, and then anything else is just extra, it's more than I've ever painted ever in my life. And I think it's just the painting that is really just where my improvement is coming from. I really don't know. I don't really think I've added anything else that could have been the reason for that. But yeah, I just paint a lot. And you know, sometimes it means like after the filming and the editing, sometimes it means staying up till midnight or 1 a.m. doing another painting just for yourself, too. Just for self-practice and just for more time with paint.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That actually brings up another thing that we wanted to ask you is, how do you, when being self-taught, how do you balance the time between art for yourself and art for improvement? And how do you determine which is which?
So what I really like about YouTube, the way I'm doing it, is I'm truthfully showing my journey. So I'm kind of doing both at the same time, in a way. I do things that I want to learn and do things that are going to take me to where I want to go, and I just show that on YouTube. So it kind of is just, you know, two birds, one stone type of situation. Yeah. But, and, you know, sometimes it sucks because, for example, like I want to be really good at flowers, but I'm not good at them right now. And sometimes I show that on YouTube, and sometimes I don't want to because I'm just like, oh my gosh, this painting just came out so bad. Right. Like, I don't want to show that on YouTube. And it's not that I hide it. Like, I'll do it anyway, and I would talk about it regardless or just show it to my Patreons. But yeah, I think because I do both at the same time, it's a lot easier, but I do try to paint at night a little bit more. But like I said, like the Evolve program, that's something that could be really beneficial to me, and it's so hard to add it to my schedule. I just feel like I'm always trying to do so much more.
Right.
I feel that. Yeah, I feel like I know exactly what I have to do to improve. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it, and that can be so difficult.
Yeah, I think for me it's just, doing paintings where I know will help my improvement, and doing paintings that I want to do a lot of the time are the same thing. And then I just show it on YouTube, and I'm just honest about it. So even if it comes out bad, I'm like, well, this is where I'm at right now, and this is what I want to do and what I want to learn. So that's kind of what you're seeing. But I guess I try to be a little efficient with that too, because I mean, I'm only human. There's no way I can crank out like 4 paintings a day for a YouTube, Patreon, myself, a program. Like it's hard.
Yeah, when being self-taught, having that time, having to fit in time to do everything that you want to do can be really hard. And I often think, I think, again, we're all in the same situation of not having a job outside of art and YouTube right now. We're very lucky in that position to be able to, I can spend all day doing art and doing what I want to do. And I can't imagine having to do that while having a full-time job. Would you have any advice for someone who has a full-time job in finding time to set aside for art, for practice, whether it's for fun or for, self-discipline? Mm-hmm. Would you have any advice for someone like that?
I think what I would say is to first not have any expectations of anything. Don't create really big goals for yourself. Like, I think you should create goals, of course, but I don't think that you should say, I'm going to paint every single day. I think that's hard regardless, right. Even for somebody who doesn't have a full-time job. It can be very taxing on you. But I think starting something simple, like maybe just once a week, just on the weekend, or anything like that on your free day, I think is a nice start. So just to start small, I think, is what I would suggest, because I think whenever we go through this thought process of like wanting to be a better person and wanting to add so many things to our list to be productive, we usually overshoot ourselves, because we're like, okay, yeah, no, I definitely got this. I've got every minute scheduled. Right. But it's like life doesn't go that way, and it's a lot harder to stick to it, and it can be very tiring. So I think starting small will, in the long run, pay off really well, instead of just cramming everything and then being disappointed in yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure. A follow-up to that, whether or not you're a full-time artist or you're kind of like us and we are, we have time to spend on our practice, you mentioned Evolve. Mm-hmm. Do you think, being a self-taught artist, how would you determine kind of, when there's so many free resources on YouTube, mm-hmm. how would you determine kind of what is worth it for you? How much money is worth sinking into something like this?
Like Evolve, you were saying?
Yeah, like if sorry, I did not phrase that question well.
No, that's okay.
Like if I'm, very dedicated to my art practice and I want to improve, and I'm looking at all my options. I'm looking at like YouTube and a school and something like Evolve. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of determine for yourself, like what is worth money and what is not worth money, and where am I going to spend my resources?
Essentially, like gauging the value of different resources.
Right. So I think, for me, it's just about how serious I am. I think I'm the only one that really knows how serious I want to take it. You could always, apply to one of these schools or take one of these programs that are very expensive and just say that you did it, but or say that you're going to do it and not do it. So it's really about like, how do you truly feel, and if you want to invest in something that is a lot for you, what do you want to take out of this and why do you want to do it? I don't think it should just be forced for you to say like, oh, I have this under my belt, I have a certificate or whatever it is. Like, I think it should be more with a purpose behind it. And besides the fact of just learning the fundamentals, like I think there should be something more to, I want to grow as an artist. I want to be in galleries. I want to be a teacher, like whatever it is. Like I think these things should have a purpose before you even just oh, I think I should do it because I see everyone else do it, or I think that's what makes me credible.
Right.
Like, I don't think those are strong enough reasons to invest a lot of money. So I think that's kind of where I stand with that. And I've purchased little courses here and there that are affordable to me, but something on a bigger scale, I think, is, it's worth thinking about. It's your money. It's a lot of money. So
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that's great advice. I think one thing that I've kind of been more aware of lately as I'm branching out into different things as an artist is I think it's really important to get to know yourself as an artist for a long time before you start making big decisions about challenges that you want to try or, programs that you want to try. I think it's really important to get to know, like, what do you want from your practice? Who do you want to be as an artist? What is the point of the things that you're doing, and what will you get out of them? Like you said, like, what's the purpose? And I think that being aware of that and kind of your abilities and your strengths and your weaknesses and your limitations helps so much in making these decisions, in being self-taught and in your education, and just like the pieces that you choose to make. I think it's been really helpful to like evaluate myself.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like really knowing yourself super well before you decide to essentially like saddle yourself with 6 figures of debt is really important. Yeah. And I wish that was like more of an option for people just entering college. So I wish that I had like I would do so many things differently if I could just like go back in time 5 years ago and go through it all again. I would make so many different choices. And I think that's like really the only thing that you can only really do that once you have a better knowledge of yourself and the kind of person that you want to be and the kind of art that you want to make.
Yeah.
Right, and I think, as artists in general, no matter where you start, we're always going to change. We're always evolving in some way or another. I feel like when I first started out, I used to watch a lot of videos where like, 5 mistakes I made so that you don't have to make them, like those type of videos. And it was
Right.
about technical things and also just like the journey itself. And I felt like, okay, cool. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. And it's like, I'm still going to run into mistakes, right? Like because everyone has their own journey. So I think that it'll come regardless. And I think as long as you're being honest with yourself and you're being like realistic, because we're talking about money and you don't want to just throw away money if you're not gonna like actually use the program. But yeah, I think just knowing that you're gonna evolve regardless and these things are gonna come is just something you kind of have to accept as part of the journey.
Yeah, I think no matter how prepared you are, I think mistakes are always, and I think they're important. I think they're a very important part of the process, is learning what doesn't work for you and your weaknesses. And I think being prepared is good. Getting all those resources is great, and like being studying and watching those videos is amazing. YouTube is an amazing resource, but I think I agree. Mistakes are going to happen no matter how prepared you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like sometimes the artists that have made the most mistakes end up being the best just because they've tried so many things and they have all of that knowledge to pull from. Yeah, so that sort of wraps up our discussion on being self-taught, but now we have some questions for you. One of our questions for you is sort of what eventually do you want your art to look like in terms of like style and subject? You mentioned portraiture earlier, sort of like what direction do you want to take that in?
Oh gosh, that's the question, isn't it? That's the question I think about every day. Oh man, it's hard to explain. I feel like I have a perfect visual in my head, and it's like, no matter how I explain it to someone, it's just not gonna come out. But what I see for myself, I mean, I'm inspired by so many artists. I've mentioned them a lot of times on my channel, but John Singer Sargent, Sororia, Velasquez, some
classics.
Some contemporary artists I really like is Jared Brady. He's amazing. Andrew Tischler. There's just so many. And so there's no one that I particularly want to be like, because I take a lot from all of these people. I just want to be a mixture of all of it and also just be myself. And I think portraiture is a really big one for me. I've recently been painting from life a lot, and it's very hard to find people to sit for me so that I can paint them. But for now, I'm still learning, how to paint from life and stuff. But What I want it to look like, I think I just want it to look like me. I just want it to represent how I see the world in the best way that I could possibly show it. And
Yeah.
I feel that sometimes I get there and I feel like I'm doing a good job, and then other paintings feel like it's not what I'm trying to show. And yeah, I don't really know if that answers your question, but I think it's just a mixture of it representing what I see, and with all of these beautiful artists like behind it, because I feel like you have to go along with these artists. I mean, they're just amazing.
Yeah.
Do you ever struggle?
You mentioned.
Sorry. I just have a follow-up question.
A really quick follow-up. do you want to go?
No, you go ahead, and then I'll go.
Very organized. You mentioned the life drawing, and I recently watched those videos, and the way you talk about it, you sound very passionate, very excited about doing the life drawing. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask how, you kind of talked about it in the video, mm-hmm. but how do you feel that it's kind of changed the way that you see your art and your practice?
I feel like it helps me represent what I see more, and it helps me connect a little bit more to nature's light, nature's color, nature's flow of things. I think I've painted from life like 3 or 4 times already, like doing still lifes here at home. And I also did plein air like 2 weeks ago, which was really fun. It was my first experience, but I think doing all of these made me realize that all the paintings I did before were not representing what I wanted it to be. They looked very not lifelike. The colors and the lightings look very off, and it's because the photos came from cameras, and the camera does a lot for you, and it adjusts everything before you even take the photograph. And I think noticing that in my paintings was just like a huge light bulb for me, and I was like, okay, wait, this is exactly what I see, and it's coming out in my paintings a little better. And I think it was an amazing feeling, and it also makes me feel like I'm learning more about what color and light truly is and what it looks like. So yeah, those experiences have been amazing.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Watching those videos made me want to set up a still life. I was like, oh my gosh, she sounds so excited. Like, I need to try this.
You should do it. I mean, it's what I'm passionate about, so I think that's why I love it. Some people can, set up a still life and hate it, and that's totally fine. I mean, I used to, when I first started and I was starting out with Pinterest, I would always wonder, like, why are people just painting an apple and an orange? Like, I don't understand. This makes no sense to me. But now I'm, like, so excited to paint an apple and an orange. If that's what was my still life, like, that's exactly what I would want. And I think it's just something with my mindset and what I'm trying to connect to when I'm painting is like what has changed. So it's not for everyone, but it's definitely something that I want, and I'm happy that I'm getting there.
Yeah, and the ability to like have complete control over like the reference photos, so to speak, or like the scene is super useful. I often find like I'm most interested in like golden hour or like really strong, interesting lighting. And that's hard to find with a lot of still life photography, because a lot of it is like chronicling
softbox,
like the portfolio of like a florist or something, where you want like everything in like perfect detail. But I often find like the pieces with the strongest lighting are like the most interesting to paint, unlike the most interesting photographs. But yeah, my follow-up question is more about like the times when you do struggle to really articulate your vision visually, like for like you have this idea of what you want the painting to be like in your head, but your hands like aren't really doing the right things to get you there. How do you like kind of deal with like the psychological duress that can like put you in like where you can get so frustrated that because like, you're just not doing the right things?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of different things that happen sometimes. Sometimes I wipe the painting off and I get rid of it. I start over. Or if I'm far along the painting and I'm like, there's no point in trying to fix this, like I'm just done, like this is it, this is garbage, this is not seeing the light. But I still look at it as an experience, and I still learn from these things. And sometimes, I'll ask for advice. I'll talk to my husband. He's very into the arts, so he does a really good job at staying very neutral and not being a yes man for me. And I think that's really helpful because he's able to tell me, like, listen, this is not good, or this looks good, or whatever. But sometimes I cry, and I think that's okay too. Like, it's such an internal process for me when I'm painting and connecting to these things and wanting to show what I want to show, and it not coming out. It can be very frustrating, but I honestly think the passion is what keeps me going, and it's the only thing that makes me like get up again, and it's like, okay, no, I got this. Like, maybe if I do this, I can figure out what went wrong and kind of just go from there. But when I go through these little pitfalls through my paintings, it's kind of like a happy thing at the end, because it's always a new space for growth. In the moment, it sucks because it's frustrating.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have been on YouTube for a couple of years, and I personally don't feel like my videos are where I want them to be. And your videos are gorgeous.
Oh.
You produce them so well. But I wanted to know, are you kind of happy where you're at with your channel? Like, are your videos the kind that you wanted to make in the beginning? Has that evolved at all? Where do you see them going?
They've definitely evolved since I've changed the way that I'm doing my paintings and stuff. But, girl, I still use iMovie. So I definitely want to evolve I want to change up my videos a little bit. It's just where I'm at right now, but I think I'm okay with every video that I've ever posted. I think it's just over time you kind of look back and you're like, wait, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
So I think that
For
I'll
sure.
naturally get there. I don't know what exactly I want it to look like, because I don't know where my journey will take me, but I think I just want, what I'm more focused on with my videos is more the editing. I think what I'm showing and what I'm talking about won't really change as much. It'll just follow, but the editing is kind of like something I could definitely improve.
Editing is hard.
Editing is definitely hard. Creative editing, like making it kind of like showy and like having your personality there and like getting the right like camera angles and stuff and like making it look really aesthetic is like a skill in and unto itself. Like it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot more time consuming than you would think until you start and you're like, oh, this is how they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially like when you just like want to sit down and like do a painting or like a drawing or whatever, but then you have to keep changing the camera angle and you have to like worry about the lighting and like the camera turns off and it's like, oh my god, I just wanted to draw this drawing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and then it adds like an hour to your process.
Yeah, like God forbid it becomes like gloomy after a sunny day and like the clouds are going in and out of the sun. Oh gosh, that's the worst for me.
Unusable footage.
Partly cloudy days
Awful.
are like the bane of my existence, I swear to God.
Yeah, I agree.
Are there any specific videos that you're like excited to make, whether it be far off in the future or any that you like have in the works right now?
Oh gosh, in the works, not currently, but in the future, I mean, I think it would be videos like meeting artists that I love or just interacting with them in some way, I think would be exciting, or any art events that I go to that I film, I would love to share. I think those are just like big milestones. Any big milestone I think would be exciting to film. I think that's what I'm excited for, but yeah.
Yeah, the experiences that come along with. That's one thing that I love about like being on YouTube is I'm getting to meet so many people that I never ever would have met otherwise. And you have all these experiences and you're introduced to so many things and getting to like have that connection and then being able to share that with people too.
Yeah.
Like I love watching like vlogs of like people going to like art markets and conventions and like galleries and being like, wow, like maybe one day I could do that, and it's exciting to think about.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Like, I would have never thought I would have met Slew, which is funny because that was before YouTube, but it was it was like right before I started, and I think about it all the time because I remember talking to him about wanting to start YouTube, and we had a conversation about it, and I'm just like, wow, here I am already with YouTube. Like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Did Slew have any like really like good tips for you when it came to starting a channel?
He kind of just said, like, go for it, you know?
That is really good
It's
advice.
like,
Yeah.
honestly, the most simple advice is the best advice. Like, just go for it and don't care about what anyone's gonna say. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember specifically, like, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's basically what he said. Like, he was just like, yeah, go for it. Like, just do it. And it was, you know, being with him and being in his studio was like enough. I was like, I'm pumped. I'm gonna do this. I'm definitely gonna do this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
That is.
How big was
Yeah.
his studio in real life?
Sorry, what was the question?
How big was his studio, like, in real life? Like, it looks huge.
I feel like it's bigger in person, honestly. That's the first
my
thing.
gosh.
That's the first thing I said when I walked in. I was like, "Wait, this is huge. It's beautiful." I mean, there's so much space for so many things. Like, he has this painting area, and then the area where he does, like, photography, like a hangout area,
Yeah.
podcast room. Like, it's a dream.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Definitely hashtag goals.
Yeah,
Definitely goals.
for sure.
But yeah, no, I think that's great advice. Like, people
Yeah.
are hunting for YouTube tips and art tips all of the time, but at the end of the day, like, the advice that you've heard 10,000
Do it.
times, like, is the best advice. You just have to go for it. You have to, like, practice and just, like, put yourself out there and see what happens. And if you're worried, like,
Yeah.
oh, I might not make it, you'll never know that unless you try.
Honestly, the hardest thing is to believe in yourself, and that is what you have to do, and it's a process. I didn't start off believing in myself. My first video is really funny. It was actually just like a practice run, like, okay, let me just do a video and I'm not going to post it. I'm just going to pretend like I'm a YouTuber. And then my husband was like, hey, you should just post it. Who cares? Nobody follows you. And I'm like, well, today is Sunday, and I would want to post on Sundays. It was literally midnight. It was like 11 p.m. on Halloween. And he was like, yeah, just do it. And I'm like, that's true. Everybody's probably partying. You know, it's Halloween. And that's literally how I started my channel. So there's my
And
story.
that's the video, like, yeah, and that has 50,000 views right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the video that blew up. Yeah.
I don't.
You didn't even expect anything.
Yeah, I don't even know how that happened. But I think just starting out, and even before anything went semi-viral or anything, just seeing one stranger being like, wow, this is amazing, I want to paint now, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is the reason for everything. And
For
but I
sure.
think the main thing is honestly just believing in yourself. Like, no matter how many videos you watch, or no matter who tells you you can do it, like, you are truly the only person that can bring yourself to do it. And it's beautiful and sometimes painful because we don't always believe in ourselves. There's always self-doubt.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, especially, like, I had never been on camera. Like, I had never...
Mm-hmm.
It's a really weird position to put yourself in, to, like, talk to a camera, and, like, even if you don't know that anyone's going to watch you, you kind of have to act as if someone will be watching you, and it's very uncomfortable, and it takes time to get used to.
Yeah.
And it's very intimidating. But yeah, like, just kind of being like, okay, like, I can do it. Like, I know I can do it. Is, like, that's the easiest way to just, like, do it. Like, just be confident enough to, like, not second guess yourself, because there's so many chances to second guess yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're having to watch footage of yourself and hear
Oh,
your
gosh.
voice and see your art from different angles, and you're like, oh gosh, I don't know. But at some point you just have to be like, you know what, I like what I did, like, I'm happy with it, and just send it, you
Yeah.
know, just do it.
Yeah.
And don't think about
Exactly. That is literally my motto. Don't think about it. Just
it. Yeah.
do
Oh
it.
yeah. Just don't think about it too hard, and everything's fine.
That is a great place to end our episode, actually. Just, like, that little pep talk. I love that.
Don't think. Well, thank you so much, Anna. I feel like we had a really good conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like I have bits that I'm gonna walk away from and think about today, and I'm gonna try still life painting for sure.
Yeah, I hope this was helpful to anyone, and I had such a fun time talking to you guys. Thank you for having me.
Interviewing Anna was so much fun, and to end the podcast, we want to, like, sort of close it off by doing our recurring section, the comment highlight. So, Al, do you want to read the comment that we got? This was on our interview with Louise, by the way.
Yes, which is where we talked about social media and mental health. And Pepper Venge had a very long comment. We're going to highlight a specific part that we thought was very insightful. Pepper Venge says, comparing your beginning to someone else's middle is probably the worst thing we can do to ourselves. This is what a psychologist would probably call upward social comparison. Which, I agree. Very good point.
It can be so difficult sometimes to like exist as someone who's just starting out as an artist because you're just constantly comparing yourself to people who are like 10 steps ahead of you and being like, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm not as good as they are. Like, I'm just not at that same skill level. Like, my videos aren't as good. My voiceovers aren't as confident. Like, whatever. But like, you have no idea what they were like.
We're all at different places.
Yeah,
we're all at different places in our journey, especially on social media when we often try to show the best of ourselves. And we're seeing our worst of our own selves. It can really be hard not to compare, but it's true. Like, you're always comparing different places in someone's journey. They might have had 5 years longer than you to work on the same thing, so of course they're better. That doesn't mean that you're worse. And I think I like, upward social comparison. I think that's a really great point, and I think it puts a lot of perspective to, hey, it's a real thing. Don't do it to yourself. That's not nice.
Yeah, and it can be super destructive, like Peppervenge talks about.
Yeah.
Like, those kind of thoughts can really hold you back. And so only comparing yourself to your previous self, I think, is the way to go, because you have all of the information on your experience.
And that doesn't mean that you can't look at other people and recognize that they have skills that you don't have, but instead of finding that a bad thing, find that a good thing. I look at other artists who are better than me, and I think, wow, that's what I want to be one day. That's inspiring. That's exciting. I want to work towards that. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Of course, there's always going to be someone better than you. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah. All right. So that is the end of our episode. We have tons of episodes on the way. We're trying really hard to get to 1,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of this month. And there are like 6 days left. So please pull through for us.
Get us there. We're so close. You guys have been amazing. We've been getting so many really nice, really sweet comments. Like, that just absolutely warm my heart. It makes me so happy to know that you guys like listening to us just vent.
Yeah.
And I'm just so glad that people are connecting. And we appreciate every single one of you.
We really do.
Thank you.
And if you're watching and you're not subscribed, we don't appreciate you.
Then we don't appreciate you. You're not welcome. Yeah. Subscribe or get out. Sorry. That's just the way it is.
Okay. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.